Hey everyone, it's Vanessa Callahan, and I'm so excited to welcome you to the Calm, Empowered Parent podcast. Together, let's challenge the idea that parenting has to be perfect. We know that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to raising children, and while love is the key, it sure helps to have the right tools for the job. Raising resilient humans is intensely personal and even transformative work, and I'm here for it. Let's laugh, cry, heal, and learn together. Here we go. We're back with the dads on the dad panel. Hope that you had a chance to catch episode 1. So many powerful insights that came through there. And so if you haven't heard it, I recommend you go check that out. But we're back with our dad panel here to talk about more about what it's like to be raising kids in these times, and particularly in these last very challenging years for all folks on the planet, but especially for parents where, kids were maybe being sent home from school, or you had to figure out who's going to take care of the kid. If your bubble didn't include another care provider, all of a sudden you're losing nannies, babysitters, all of these things that we've been through. Most of these folks right here in this room, in this Zoom room, in this conversation, had to work that out. And during that time, we're probably getting curious about also just generally their journey of fatherhood. And so we're going to start off with some wins, some breakthroughs, anything that, really had a lasting impact, not just in that moment, but sort of on your life going forward as we kind of think about this idea of parenting wins. And we're going to start off with Art. We'd love to hear, what stands out to you in these last few years.
Yeah, I mean, our biggest win has been the fact that our daughter takes a breath, with us sometimes and just takes a moment. She does have the general thing of jumping to conclusions and having like something going from 0 to 100. And so having that, our biggest win with her has been just having her slow down and take a breath. It's obviously a work in progress. The fun thing with kids is that they change a lot. They're going through a lot of changes. And so every day it's something new, but like building those small blocks of being able to reduce those tantrums by being able to have her take a breath, sometimes with us and often, hopefully more and more with herself, by herself. And then us not taking those personally has been really helpful. Like her tantrums are not about us. Obviously, there's a lot going on in her life. Being able to just let her be and then giving her the tools to be able to start responding to it has been very powerful and a win. And so, and it's still, I wish, she would, meditate and like, respond a lot more calmly, but obviously it's still, a lot of work there, but, just those small wins are what, help us build and have made our life a lot easier.
That's beautiful. I could picture it, a moment of you dropping in, catching that breath, right? And pausing and being able to come back to whatever situation it was with that calm. Yeah. Wonderful. And it's true, those moments do build. So I like that it wasn't necessarily one event, but it's this trend, this pattern, and this like toolbox that is available now to you and your kiddos that has been, impacting daily life. So happy for you on that win, Art. Thank you. We'd love to hear from David next. What wins have stood out to you?
Yeah, I've got 2, which maybe I could talk about. We'll see how long I blab. The first one is basically, it's a small win, but like Art was saying, it's a small one. But I think the first win for me was the most important because I was coming from a place where I was so down on myself. And last episode, Gary was mentioning the growth mindset. And in general, I have a growth mindset and I believe in a growth mindset. But I was at this place where I was starting to feel really like a very bad parent. Right. And then the first victory helps you sort of turn that around and start feeling like, okay, yes, I can, grow or succeed at something I'm not succeeding at. And for me, it was just memorizing the I care model. So it wasn't even an interaction with the kids. It was just I was starting to invest, right, in the Immersion program with Vanessa. And there was a weekend, which was the Motivation Mastery weekend. And for me, I guess it's helpful to really like put a big chunk of hours into something to start getting something out of it, and so we were doing 1.5 hour sessions, we were doing one-on-ones, everything was great, but somehow this weekend it clicked for me. We were together on Zoom for 2.5 days, and at the end of those 2.5 days, I was like, I remember something. Like if my kid doesn't want to do something, I remember this checklist I can go through of like, can I increase the interest? Do they have the competence they need for the thing I'm asking of them or the thing we're talking about? I could just go down the list, and I thought, oh my goodness, like I can do this maybe, like, or at least do it a little bit better than I've been doing it up till now. So that first little win was really important and inspiring for me to keep pushing. And people would often ask me, is it worth it? Should I get coaching? Should I go into like an immersion program? Like, there's like a price tag. Like, how's it going to be? And I'm like, from my perspective, it depends on what you're going to put into it. Like, if you're going to put in time and effort, then it's absolutely going to be worth it. It might be the best thing you do in your life. But if you can't put in time and effort into your parenting, you should kind of expect it to keep going how it's going, with or without signing up for a mentorship program, right? So part of the lesson really is you really have to invest if you want to get something out of it, because it's not easy.
And
My
isn't that kind of
second,
like how everything works? Like,
it,
you know,
it
I
may
think
be
I'm
how a
just
lot
like,
of things work.
yeah, what I like is that you're naming that like this is, and I like this because of how important it is that we reframe this, that we're talking about skills and knowledge and tools and strategies that maybe you've never seen before. So of course, it's going to take investment to learn something new. And but the good news is that it's not something you either have or don't have.
Mhm.
It's something you can learn. And like
Right.
that should be good news for us all. Although
Yeah.
some of us will go, oh gosh, that sounds like more work. And it's like, well, yeah, but isn't it worth it? It's like something so important to you, right?
I
So
definitely didn't have it. And if we were to apply a fixed mindset, we could say I was less likely to acquire it because I was sleep deprived and I was struggling to remember things that you were teaching us, right? So it was hard for me to remember what each of the letters in an acronym stood for, and how, but by putting in the time, I could get to that point where I could remember something, even a tired dad. So
I still remember how excited you were at the end of your first Motivation Mastery weekend and how like you kind of show up to the next one with some swagger. You're like, I know this eye care thing. Yeah. And you're not the only
yeah.
one to become like a big fan of this model, which by the way is based on several different researchers. And, I pulled together into this experience, right, for clients. And even like another dad created a flip, like a pocket version of the chart. So you could have like a flip book that you could have on hand. And it is helpful to have a model that you know well, you can pull from when you need it. And I love that you've run with it so far, David. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
And then I think the other biggest win was sort of the idea of us being a team and transforming this family of individuals bouncing around each other into like a team with shared goal and direction in some cases. And this question that Vanessa tells us that we can ask the kids, like, all right, so we've got this morning where we're going to try and do these kind of things. How is this morning going to go? How do we want this morning to be? How do we want it to go? Right? Because one way or another, we're going to go to this zoo that mom and dad bought tickets for, right? So are we going to go there kicking and screaming 3 hours from now and get half an hour with the animals, or are we going to, thank mom for breakfast or thank dad for getting me dressed or, so to talk about it as a team and to go from, you know, dictator parents, kids kind of fighting back, sniping away with less power, and then power struggles, to go from that to let's work as a team. And it was a concept that also came out of that same weekend, um but that was the biggest win, was being able to just get the word team into our thinking all the time, that we're looking at it that way. So,
Such a powerful thing to claim for yourselves and like kind of shift towards. I love it, David, and seeing how far it's taken you and your wife and your whole family. And your eldest is starting to warm up to it more and more too, which is so helpful. Let's see what Eric, we'd love to hear from you. Like parenting win, how has it impacted you? So we can also learn from you.
Sure. First off, there's been just so many things and so many facets of how I interact with my kids that I've learned and been able to hone through this whole thing. So this is just one sliver of it. And it goes back to what I was talking about before in the previous episode about my son who was 3 at the time having epic tantrums that would last an hour, sometimes 2 hours, just crazy emotional drains on me. And for me, the biggest win was learning how to approach that, and going against my gut reactions of backing away or trying to go against and leaning in. She taught us, Vanessa taught us the model around your lid being flipped. This is when you have control of your emotions or you don't, and this is when you have controls, and when your lid flips, you have that. And so it gave us one tool to help with our older son, like before the incidents were happened, and then even during the incidents that happened, so like to kind of prep for that, so he understands what's going on a little bit more. And then when we're in it, to be able to hopefully pull one thing to try to help pull Matt away from his bring him down a notch or two. And it's turned in for me to being having this emotional connection with my son that I didn't think or imagine that I would have. Again, this is something that felt like maybe this isn't the type of emotional connection that you would have, from a father. Maybe traditionally the women have these kind of emotional connections and the dad don't have the same kind of emotional connections. But for me, like when he's upset, when he's emotionally charged, he comes to me now. And when I'm in the thick of it and he's having a tantrum, it still happens, right? But what I do now is I lean in and say, just give me a hug, just give me a hug, because I know at that moment he needs to feel safe. He needs to have his emotions validated, and I want him to feel like it's okay to have emotions. And I'm not trying to fix it. I'm not trying to talk to him in a way that trying to teach him something in that moment, because we've learned that doesn't work. And so now I just say, come here, give me a hug, give me a hug. And he just runs in and just gives me a hug, even if we're fighting with each other, right? Either he's mad at me for something. He comes and we give a hug, he sits on my lap, and within like 2 minutes, it's squashed. So it's had a profound effect on that, but then just in our relationship and our closeness.
It's so beautiful. I love how I can see it. I can see him like, I'm so mad at you, and yes, and like embracing you. This
It
is
still comes in. I'm like,
yeah. At
it's
least
counterintuitive.
he's come to learn that he can be that, you can have that security and trust and closeness even in conflict. And that's so powerful. Like, man, how that's going to play out over the years. And yeah, excited for both of you to have that kind of relationship. And I noticed what you said about maybe traditionally that's maybe not necessarily the role that a father gets to play. And that here you are with your son running into your arms. Yeah, it's very moving, Eric. And it's just expansive on what's possible for dads. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's kick it to Gary next. Gary, what have been some of your wins and anything that stood out in particular?
Yeah, something that we've struggled with, particularly the last school year was getting the kids, to school on time. I think the second half of last year, we were late almost every single day, or like the rest of the 2024 calendar school year. And so the start of this school year, we also had our youngest entering transitional kindergarten along with our two older boys. So they're going to be now kids all going to the same school, trying to get them aligned on the same earlier schedule now. And going in, that was going to be a huge effort to try to get them all out the door on time. And we kind of incorporate a whole bunch of different tools that we've learned over the past year. A big one was certainly before we would always just give directives of, oh, do this, go, brush your teeth, go, get changed, get dressed, eat your breakfast. And noticing that 90% of the time it would just go in one ear out the other. And, really trying to incorporate now the idea of really connecting first before making any requests. And that made a huge difference, particularly with my oldest. Being the oldest and kind of having been the easiest of our three kids, we kind of took that for granted. And we were starting to notice that we just weren't giving him the attention that he had previously, obviously, because now there's two younger kids. But then also that because he wasn't getting that attention, there was just a little bit more opposition in general for regular things, which we didn't encounter before. we would start after implementing, this whole connection before correction idea of, giving him like morning cuddles and just like 5 minutes, maybe less even, just to kind of get together with him, check in on how he's doing. And then we just noticed this market change in his approach to the point where we can start delegating more things to him so that he could take on a bigger responsibility and have a bigger role in the routines for both morning and evening. And then we would using that kind of scaffolding that along with the routine scheduling for the younger kids as well, and then incorporating again, connecting with our middle child who tends to be on the spicier side, and lots of mornings would start off with various arguments and fights, and again connecting with him so that he would then feel he was being seen and his needs were being met, so that we could start off from a good place from the very beginning and not dig ourselves a hole early that we'd have to try to climb out of. And that's been tremendous. And incorporating then, for our third, who was nervous about going to this new school with all these kids, kind of employing the two older kids to really like build up the school event and make it so that he could relate to it more. They would explain to him like, oh, this is what the schedule is going to be like, and this is where you're going to play, and this is where the bathrooms are, this is the cafeteria. Oh, and the food's really good. Yeah, whether that's true or not, who knows? But just really selling it, and that kind of eased his nerves on the whole situation. So, a bunch of different things kind of coming together. And, so far this year, like, we've been pretty much on time or early, like every single day. So, that's been a tremendous change. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to set the day with that tone to start, there's so many folks who one of their top complaints when they come into a coaching session with me, for their, complimentary session, they'll say, I just want to get the kids out the door without feeling stressed. Like, I don't want to start my day with stress. And so this is a very appealing win, Gary, that you just shared with us all. And I still remember back when we were, talking about how the lateness in the last school year, and the two of you were just sort of wrapping your heads around it. And you're like, this summer, we really need to commit to a change. And one of the ideas you highlighted that I want to just emphasize is that sometimes like investing 5 minutes at the beginning of the morning can save you like 15 to 20 of like stress and strife, or even 50 minutes. And I used to have to talk myself into that as a teacher because my instinct would be whack-a-mole. Like, okay, well, whack it and go on, whack, 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 whack. And trying to just like get all the things done, make all the things happen. But then I was in this constant state of stress. And I just realized that if I stop and I like teach, or I stop and I give a deeper support to a kid, like you do the cuddles with your little one in the morning, or if I take some time out for training for 10 minutes, that could save me 3 mornings like that. And that proactivity is really exciting once it starts to work in your family. And I'm seeing that for you. I'm really excited for you. Thank you for that. And we'd love to hear from Paul next. Yeah, parenting wins, anything that's particularly, standing out to you right now that's been much.
Well, this is the dad panel. So I'm going to go with intrinsic motivation. I can sell that kid soggy spinach and he will eat it. And it's all because I'm a dad and I get to be the fun guy and I can make games out of anything. This all began with, it was a leafy green and he wasn't going to eat it. He wasn't going to do it. It came with a chicken dish and he just wasn't going to do it. I'm like, you never tried, man. He's like, well, I don't want to try. I'm like, no, I mean, you never tried to push him out of my chair. And he's like, what? I'm like, I bet you can't push me out of your chair. And he got up. And of course, I'm heavy as a brick. He can't push me out of my chair. Not going to happen. I let him eat your cabbage. He eats a little cabbage. Whoa, you almost got anyway. You get the point, right? So we get to make a game out of anything to do this intrinsic motivation. And man, it still works to this day. He has shoved me off that chair so many nights and it has worked. His plate is clear. Just last night, he's like, my avocado's too squishy. And I'm like, okay, well, you want some chips? No, they're too crunchy. Whoa, Jamie, what if you made a chip avocado sandwich? You could balance out the squishy with the crunchy and it'd be like perfect. I'm going to do that. He ate all the chips. He ate all the avocado and he's like, yum. He's dancing around the room. Dads, this is really our secret power. I mean, you guys are all excellent, Eric and everybody. The emotion stuff is totally there too, and that's very valuable. I just have to kind of balance the scale on the other end of it, man, because man, my kid, I can get him to do anything now. Get out the door quick. Well, Jamie, see how quick you can tie those laces. Huh? I'm tying, time's ticking. Oh man, the only backfire, however, and this is the next thing I got to work on. Now he's become a little bit too competitive. He eats his oatmeal so fast. First, Dad, you're last. You know, it's starting to really like, well, he's proud of winning. Uh-oh. Okay, well, we got to tune this back a little bit and make him proud of eating his oatmeal instead. You know what, though? I'll take it. It's fine. He eats everything I give him now. So, yeah, it's the intrinsic motivation was the big win for me.
There's so many laughs and so many claps happening in this Zoom room, by the way, for those of you who are just listening and laughs. Yeah, intrinsic motivation is sort of like the thing I geek out on the most besides emotional resilience. They're kind of tied in my world. Master's research, 100 studies on intrinsic motivation that I read to do my own. And there's a reason why I is at the top of the eye care model, which is something we talked about in the last episode that David brought up. Interest, like how can we make this more interesting? And sometimes it's like, it's interesting from like an intellectual intriguing, like, why does this matter? Like, what does it all mean? Sometimes it's interesting because of what else it's connected to, right? But usually it's just fun. It's more fun. And things are more interesting when they're fun and they're funny. And I've had so many parents that I've worked with say, I had to find my inner like silliness or my inner preschool teacher. And then others say, oh, this is my shtick. Like, this is the thing I got. This is what I run with already. Comes really naturally to me. Then I've been able to confirm it and being like, yeah, it keeps you connected, keeps things light, helps you stay in a creative space too, is what I'm hearing. So that like his fixed idea of spinach bad, could turn into something else. Oh, spinach makes me strong because you brought in that fun and that play. So the power of play is alive and well in this group, I know. And thank you for personifying that for us, Paul. We're all smiling over here. And it's also available to the moms too, which is a good news. Some of the biggest breakthroughs I've had with moms, by the way, is when I've helped them find that inner silliness where they're willing to play and they're willing to make it, be silly and not feel like they're losing a battle that way, but they're actually, coming together to be on the same team. So, oh my gosh, squishy avocado with crunchy chip is just great. David wants to add. Yeah, go for it, David.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm really silly as well. And I think my partner, Chloe, always assumed that I would be the silly one, right? Again, like kind of like a fixed thing, like you're so fun, you're so silly, the kids are always going to want to do fun stuff with you. When she tries to be silly, she can totally do it. It's just that she didn't think that was her thing for so long. So anyone out there who doesn't think that they're funny or silly and that that's just not a part of the parenting that you do, have you tried it? Have you tried pushing your kid off a chair?
I like how you flip that because for Paul, it was the kid pushing him off the chair, but now you're like, no, I pushed the kid off the chair. It's great. I remember a couple of times that I, had to kind of break my like serious. I have a pretty serious side because I come from a very serious woman. Like my mother is a very serious person, and everybody's just a little scared of her, or very scared of her, and in varying degrees in my family. And she definitely wields an authority, and I can sometimes fall into that kind of pattern because it's what I was raised. It's like what power looks like, right? When you're in charge. And I still remember coming out to the hallway and getting stern with these kids who were off task. Like they had asked for this special opportunity to be in the hallway and like do some work together. And they'll be quiet and they'll be on task. And I come over and I see them like messing around, working on some Pokemon deck or something that they were making and not doing the assignment. And I remember coming in pretty stern. And by the third time I did it, they scattered when I just came into the room. And I thought to myself, is this the effect I want to have on kids? That my presence makes them scared and want to run away from each other? And I thought, this is awful. So I turned it around and I came in and I did something silly. And then someone said, this assignment's too hard. And I laid on the ground and I went, this assignment's too hard. And they were like, what is happening right now? But then they all started giggling and laughing and it kind of broke down that wall that had built up. And next thing you know, I was asking them genuine questions like, what are you up to that's so compelling you won't do your assignment, and it turns out they were doing something really cool. They were like coming up with this entire new point system for Pokemon decks and doing, art and writing and design. And I said, maybe this should be your special project. And they were so excited because what I really wanted to see was them engaging in learning and putting their, intelligence towards something meaningful. And they were technically completing the assignment, actually. I just wouldn't have had a chance to see it otherwise. And I think that's what the levity brings in an opportunity for us to see things from a different angle and maybe take it a little less seriously. Like I've said, am I really picking a fight with a 4-year-old right now? Like, is that what I'm up to actually? Like, and even just asking myself a silly question sometimes helps me to soften and reconsider my approach. And yeah, I've seen each and every one of you step into that. And I love your message, David, for even if you don't think you've got it, like I didn't have that model coming from a female authority figure. Not once, I don't think so. But trying on that part of your personality that's in there. We all have humor. It's one of the universal character strengths in people. It's one of 24. We've all got at least some of it. So love that. Thank you, Paul, for bringing that in. And I want to kick it to Tony. I want to hear what was your biggest win? What could we, learn from you today around?
I have a few.
Yeah, go for it.
One is I've successfully kind of instilled this try again kind of mantra with my son. So if you watch Cass play and he's failing at something, like he's trying to do something and he's failing, he'll stop and he says, "I'm doing my best. Okay, I'm gonna try again." He tries again, fails. Okay, I'm gonna try again. It's like try again, try again, try again. Or if he's tried multiple times, he'll come over to me. He says, "Papa, I need your help." And I said, "Okay, show me what you can do. Like, let me show me like how far you can get by yourself." And he'll show me what he does. I'm like, "Okay, you're almost there." And like I do like just a little adjustment here, and next he's like made it through, and he's like it's it's like so it creates this like really cool. I'm gonna try again. He doesn't really use I can't. Like, it's just like, okay, I didn't do it that time. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna try it again and try it again. Try a little differently. And if then I can't do it, then I'm gonna ask Daddy for a little bit of help somewhere, right? And I think that from my perspective, I think it has like it that for me is like he's a resilient kid, right? Like he doesn't let failure stop him. It's like it's an opportunity to like, okay, I failed. Cool, let's keep going. Let's try something else, right? And it's just kind of a joy to watch, honestly. Like I just kind of sit back and I just watch him, like, okay. And I hear from his teacher at school that like it's interesting to watch him kind of work because he'll step back, kind of analyze a problem, try to figure it out, and then step back into it. And like, and she's like, I watch him do this in class. Because like I watch him say, okay, try again. It's like really great to see that it's not just at home, like it's translating to other parts of his life. So it's really great. And then the other one I alluded to earlier in part one was the thing that we got, the first conversation that we had with you, Vanessa. I will never stop sharing this because it's like it just completely transformed our evenings. Was we had one conversation with Vanessa before we were clients. I mean, it was like a 30-minute call. I don't even know how long it was. And it was like we were having trouble getting Cass to go to sleep on any given night, right? Like the process was 2.5 hours. It required both of us. We couldn't like we had to be in the bed with him while he did all the different things he did. And then Vanessa talked about this whole concept of social stories, right? Like walk him through the process, photograph it, make a book for him about like what the process, what we expect for nighttime is. So right after that call that night when he came home from school, excuse me, when he came from school, I walked him through that process. I took pictures and he picked it up like that. He immediately knew, okay, this is what's expected of me, right? We never even printed the book. Like it was just like I walked him through what I expect for nighttime routine. And that night he was asleep in 10 minutes, right? It was like, okay, time for bed. Okay. Shuts everything down, goes into bed. 10 minutes later, he's out. And it was just like, oh, that was magic. Like what just happened? And now it's like, now I've also instilled that he has to clean up his mess before he goes to bed. So when I tell him, okay, it's 5 minutes before bedtime, he'll stop what he's doing and he'll pick up his toys. And then, okay, I'm done, Papa, let's go to bed. And so he's now asking us when we're to come. And then he's in bed. We come in bed. We might do a little bit of tickling, a little bit of like blowing raspberries on his belly or something, and then do prayers. And he's asleep within 10 minutes. It's like it's magic, and it's never faltered. It's been that way since we did that one night, and it just and he's asleep. Like last night, he was asleep by 8:10, which is like really great because he's getting a full night's sleep now, and it's making a difference at school. So like it's just one of the, it's the thing that has continually like paid off over and over and over again. It's just been like magic. It's been awesome.
I love when we can find something that has such a high impact on your daily experience of life with children. It's so exciting. And we hit a slam dunk right out of the, like we it's like we went on the court one and just immediately slam dunk. And it was a discovery though on the early end of like what your son responds to and how literal he needs things to be and how helpful it is to do that walkthrough and being able to apply that across all of these other things that, you've been able to share in this episode and so much more. And yeah, Tony, so thank you for continuing to share that story because it's so hopeful. So like anybody's listening who feels stuck in something that's been a really hard way, as many of these dads on the panel have shared with you, like there's a way through it, and we don't have to necessarily accept, quote unquote, that this is how it has to be, quote unquote, right? Like this is a great example of possibility of change, even if something's been a certain way for a while, right? For weeks or even months or even years. So there's no point in which we need to give up on change when it comes to kids because they're hardwired to grow and learn and change and be influenced by their environment. And that's such a hopeful thing. Thank goodness. Thank goodness, right? They keep learning and growing and acquiring skills. And of course, there are going to be some natural tendencies that are harder and it will still be there, but progress is still possible within the capacity of each individual child. Like you can still find a goal. I always had the next developmental goal for every single kid for every single area, intellectually, emotionally, and socially in my class, because I knew like where they are, great. Everybody has a little space to grow next because they're children. And actually, I would say that's kind of the human condition. If we want to really go there, we can embrace that it's happening all the way past 24, 28, hopefully, knock on wood. But coming back to the kids and parenting, I would love to hear from each of you. And by the way, this is a question I ask all of my guests, whether they're sleeping and grief and, student assessment experts that we've heard from this season or, parents, clients, coaches. If there's something that you could whisper in your ear, if you could time travel back to a time that as a parent, as a father, you were maybe at a low point or a point where you were starting to struggle, maybe like David had mentioned earlier, I think it was in episode 1 about like the give up moment of like, can someone else do this? Because it's not me. Can you think back to a time and just imagine like what would have been helpful for you to hear at that time? Like if you could go and just whisper something in your ear, have a sit down with yourself and say something, like do you think would be the most important thing that you'd want to be able to say to your past self? We'll start with Tony.
So Cass was a late talker, right? Speech delay is normal for kids with ASD. There was a time where I would tell Saban, well, number one, I had to tell Saban that like I have to mourn the life I thought my son would have, right? Because it became very clear that he was going to be quote unquote different, right? And like all the things that I had like planned for and thought about with like, well, I have a son, like we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this, and da, 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 da. And so I would tell him that like he's different, but he ain't that different. You know what I mean? Like he's not that different, dude. Like he's not gonna stop talking once he starts. Like he will not stop talking once he starts. Just wait. You will have plenty of conversations with him, and he is going to melt your heart on a daily basis. He is such an empathetic, he is such a sweet child. He is everything that you wanted from a kid. And I will stand by that. He's everything I wanted from a kid. He's absolutely amazing. And
Tony.
and you're gonna love being a dad.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Thank you. How about for you, Paul? What would you whisper in your own ear?
Well, that's a hard one to top. That was beautiful, Tony. I would really just tell myself it's not going to be how you think, and it's going to be wonderful, and it's going to be fun. Put the time in, and it's going to be fun. Because I didn't think that, it's like, wow, this is going to be a problem we're never going to solve. But no, it's actually fantastic. And going through these struggles have been so large and so big to have taught us so many things. I can even deal with strangers on a plane, a whole new level where it's wonderful. So it's all good. And I think I would have told myself something like that.
Thank you, Paul. Strangers on a plane. It's true. Transferable skills, right? Let's hear from Gary next. What would you whisper to yourself if you could?
I think, certainly given where I was coming into the program and just kind of in general how down I was on myself as a parent, and to any parents who are finding themselves struggling with that whole parenting process, just give yourself some grace. Being a parent's hard. Nobody really gives you, there's no manual until now. There is, but but again, there's no clear cut necessarily one way of doing things. And and if you fall short one day, that all that means is that you have more room for growth tomorrow. So so long as you put in the work, as Paul mentioned, as David mentioned previously last episode, if you put in that work, you put in that effort, and you continue to grow as a parent, as a person, that will be reflected in your children. And that's the best we can do.
I love it. Thank you, Gary. Feel your heart in that one, and such compassion for yourself and how far you've come to, and like represented in your new perspective. Lovely. Thank you. How about you, Eric? What would you say?
Yeah, I love that, Gary, about grace. I think that's just so core to everything. When I think about what I tell myself, I'm thinking about myself in the middle of one of my son's epic tantrums, like hour-long plus tantrums, and how I would feel when I'm just sort of emotionally shattered. I'm just kind of becoming numb. I had earplugs in because he's just screaming, and I'm sometimes physically trying to push him away from something that he's doing, like that might be hurting himself or whatever it may be. Sometimes physically restraining him and earplugs, and it's a pretty lonely place to be. And I think I would say that it gets better. There are answers, and this too shall pass. I think all things good and bad, they come and go when you're a parent. Appreciate the good things, or when things are easier, because that'll probably go too for a while and then come back and things cycle around, but everything's going to be okay, and the answers are there. Thanks for Vanessa for that. The answers in many cases.
I know there's someone out there who needs to hear exactly what all of you are saying right now too. And thank you for painting that picture of like that darkest space that you found yourself in. And yeah, I don't know about you, but it's like healing for me, even hearing these things in the present. And there's some part of you that's hopefully being comforted, not only the people who are listening, but the people on the panel. It's a powerful thing to say these things out loud. Thank you. And I'd love to hear from David next.
Yeah, so if I only had like 1 or 2 seconds, I would quickly whisper raisingourresilience@gmail.com myself. And hopefully I would get the point. If I had a little more time, I would say what Gary and Eric just said. I would just tell myself parenting is difficult, because that, just by saying that, it also includes what Gary's saying about the grace, right? When you understand that the task is difficult, then it's more okay to fail at it. Part of my problem was I thought I was going to be good at it, right? So it's the expectation reality gap that really threw me into the pits of despair. So just saying it's difficult is a really big step towards, not being too hard on yourself, and believing that you can do it and you can get better and all of that, right? And one last detail I'd maybe add to that is, I think of it this way: like, think of all the things you're going to do in your life, and how, what are the most important 2 or 3 things you're going to do in your life, and how much effort are you going to put into them? How important are they, right? I think raising your kids is likely to be one of the 2 or 3 most important things that most of us who have kids do in our lives, if not just the most important, but it's up there for most of us. So, and for other things, how much do you train, right? For your career, how much time do you spend training? Or even for your hobby, right? Like, how much effort and time do you put into things? And then basically, Chloe and I, we prepared for childbirth. That was as far as we had planned or prepared. And then you've got like a kid, and you're like trying to do something for which maybe you should have a PhD. and you're literally walking in off the street and taking the job. So, okay, I mean, I think when you think of it that way, it's obvious that you should get help, you should study, you should train, and whatever your way of studying or training is, which is going to be different for different parents. It could be a parent support group. It could be chatting with somebody else who you think is a good parent, or a couple people you think are good parents. It could be reading a book, which was not the answer for me, but Chloe eventually read a lot of books on parenting. I ended up trying to seek different parent coaches. Vanessa was actually not the first stop. She was just the stop that worked. So I think, it becomes really obvious that we should invest in training ourselves in these skills and knowledge.
And thank you for normalizing that, because I think there's this myth out there that we're supposed to just like, oh, your instincts will kick in and you'll figure it'll all make sense. It'll all figure. Well, first of all, okay, I love that we have instincts. Like, please do listen to your instincts, your intuition, your heart, your spirit, inside, whatever, like there's a voice inside you that's wise. But also, like, how many other things this important are we willing to do trial and error? Like, are we like excited to see a doctor who's like, I haven't done this before, but I'll try it on you? It's like not very reassuring. So I like what you said about, yeah, like anything else that's this important, like we train for it. And I remember having the same moment in my own career, first as a teacher and then as a step parent, being like, oh yeah, this isn't all just flowing from your DNA, right? Like this is a learned skill. And many of us in our current modern life do not spend much time with children until we have our own. And I think that there was a lot of this that was taken care of by like generations being closer together, intergenerational like living, and modern humans have changed things. And now we need something else there to help us kind of recreate that sort of village of people that we can learn from. And that's what I love about working in groups, because we get to have that feels in my bones real and right and true, that this is how it's actually supposed to go. We don't do this alone. And Tony has something to add. Yeah, Tony.
Just wanted to piggyback really quickly on the like it's hard, right? Like I remember it's just a funny little story when I was still in the hospital, like Savannah giving birth, we were still in the hospital, we hadn't been discharged yet. And Cass wouldn't stop crying. And I couldn't, no matter what I did, I couldn't get him to stop crying, right? So I went to the nurses and I was like, my son won't stop crying. And they literally laughed at me. And I like in that moment, I was like, oh, got it. This is my job now. I was like, okay.
Candor of the nurses. Yeah, they're like, not our first time seeing a baby or a dad. So
Yeah.
let's just let you in on a secret here.
I was like, oh, very quickly. I was like, oh, well, okay, got it. I got myself into something that didn't realize what I was doing. All right, cool. Thanks.
And yeah, I would love to hear from Art too. What would you say to yourself if you could go back and send yourself a message to your early dad self?
I mean, I repeat a lot of what everyone else says, but like mostly what for me is very interesting is that, parenting is like anything else, a skill, but we come into it with a lot of baggage, a lot of things that we've heard about of how to deal with kids, how to deal with ourselves, and mostly from our parents. And so I look at my parents and they were so strong, so able to survive a lot of things that life threw at them, and still be able to help me get to where I am. But at the same time, I look at it and I'm like, I see in them what their parents did as I hear stories about it and all of that. And it's just sometimes a continuation. And can we learn, not only learn from that community, but from a broader community of people, and be able to then really apply those skills? Because like everything else, like I was saying, like parenting is a skill. It requires a lot of knowledge and training, and like learning from one kid, and even with two kids, right? Like there was such a difference between the first kid and the second kid that I was like, well, none of the stuff I learned from the first one applies to the second one. Like, what am I, how is this supposed to work? And so knowing that programming that is there, being able to learn from it, but at the same time learn from a community of people who are like-minded and trying to really make sure that they have resilient kids, is pretty powerful. And so there's no shame, there's nothing wrong in asking for that help and learning from other people, because there is a lot of knowledge that can come from other people's experiences as they have dealt with specific situations. And it doesn't mean that particular advice is the right advice, but it does mean that it adds you to your arsenal as you're trying to really learn and deal with any situation that life and your kid throws at you.
Love it, Art. Thank you for kind of like wrapping up the piece around what we would say to ourselves, because I feel like we touched on so many really important themes here, and all of it sounds empowering to me and reassuring. And like we're gonna make it through. And by design, we close out our sessions with like, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, I believe in you, and like you got this. And we say each other's names at the end of the sessions, instilling that belief that even when we get stuck, even when we get hard, there's a way through. And I feel like there's a thread here for the folks listening that's going to help them see that light through any kind of darkness they experience in this and struggle.
I was just going to add a punchy piece of advice for your audience to tell them, read the manual, dudes.
I love how he just mic dropped it. You hit mute right after. You're like, that's awesome, Paul. Read the manual, dudes. Okay. Yes, message received. Thank you, Paul.
And to that end, actually, about the manual thing, one thing that we haven't talked about is that this was a great way to actually get me and my wife on the same page in terms of our philosophies and techniques and trying things and backing each other up and even opening up communication between us. Because, I think we didn't have like an in-depth conversation about like what kind of parents we wanted to be. And we kind of did, but it was really like conceptual. And when it comes down to like where the rubber hits the road, all those little details, we had vastly different styles. So that was hugely beneficial for us to just like get on the same page.
I wanted to quickly talk about why we're doing a second year with raising our resilience. So, our child is a different child from year one to year two, and we're different parents from year one to year two. So part of it was like the first year was just kind of like, let's just get a baseline for everything. We had like tools that really, really worked for us. So we like really went into those tools. And then in year two, we found that those tools weren't necessarily like what we needed in that moment. So it was like, cool, we need more tools. Like let's go back and let's get more tools. And so like we can really, it's really like starting to master more and more different techniques to deal with our kid. And I think it's made a big difference, like, because again, he is a different kid and we are different parents. So what might have worked in 1 second may not be working in this moment. So let's try a different tool here. And he's really responded well to that. Like he's responded well to like, okay, I'm gonna give this an opportunity. Like he's gonna, all right, I'll try that. Sure. And it works really, really well.
Our kids keep changing. It is a moving target. And, I think it was Tiffany, who's now actually in her 5th year of the immersion. Woo, Tiffany, came to a school workshop. I know she was feeling like all kinds of ways about being a parent. And boy, have we been through a journey together. And I remember her coming to me and saying something very wise. She said, I know it takes a year to just understand a thing. It takes us 2 years to be able to practice and feel comfortable with a thing. And it takes 3 years to become, actually master a skill and have it be part of your natural repertoire in response to things. So she said, I hope you have 3 years of program. And she was in my first cohort. And I was like, for you, Tiffany, I will build it. And that's why we have like a, leadership and legacy. And like, she's staying on because it's still enhancing her life, not because she doesn't feel like she has skills. She just likes the community and the continuity and the reminders and everything. But just want to applaud each and every one of you on this panel. I know you've been with the Raising Resilience community for 1 year to 3 years and have contributed so much also to this panel, and for everyone who's listening out there who gets to see what it's like when, empowered dads come together and have a conversation about their journeys. And just so much appreciation to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for joining this panel and this discussion today.
Thank you. It's nice to talk to everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep, great to see you all. I'm sorry I missed our little party, but thanks, guys. You're all wonderful. Keep it up. You're doing the right thing. Excellent.
I love your guys' kids, by the way. The kids I've met, I've loved them. Like Eric, you know how I feel about your kids. Your kids are awesome.
As we wrap up, remember, there's no one-size-fits-all way to parent. Keep nurturing those strong family bonds and watch resilience bloom in your community. You've got this. And if you found this episode valuable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can also hop over to thecalmempoweredparent.com for current events and to grab your copy of the Calm Parent Strategy Guide. You can even learn how to bring our free and low-cost workshops to your school or community. Your support means the world to us and helps us empower more parents and children. Let's do this together.